you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are listening that makes the visual welcome to 16 years, 2,700 episodes of the Chris Voss Show, because we had nothing better to do. We're sitting around living in a van down by the river in a viaduct, under a viaduct. Can I stack enough of those? Sounds like a country song. And we were just like, we should make a podcast. That's why all the more you should, and we're having these brilliant authors and motivators and minds on the show to share their journeys, their stories, their lessons of life, to make your life better. And then some idiots just going to run the mic. That's how I got the job. Anyway, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet.
Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind.
Today we have an amazing young man on this show. We're going to be talking about his story, his journey, and all that great stuff. Farid Yaghoubtil is on the show with us today. He is the founding partner of Downtown LA Law Group, a top-rated personal injury firm in Los Angeles, California. For more than a decade, he has focused on developing strong teams and delivering results-driven advocacy for clients across California. You can check him out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and his website. Welcome to the show. How are you, Farid?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it, too. Give us your .coms anywhere on the internet you want people to find you.
www.downtownlalaw.com.
So give us a 30,000 overview of what you do there, Farid.
The firm is a plaintiff-oriented civil litigation firm. We handle a wide array of different types of cases for anyone who's a consumer, whether it's a personal injury case, whether it's a mass tort case where you took a medication that made you sick or made you feel a certain way that wasn't positive or what it was intended to do. If you're a workers' comp case, an employment litigation case, that's in slip and falls, the run-of-the-mill stuff, but mainly super consumer-centric in everything that we do. We put the client first. Everything we do is to serve the client in every way possible.
Well, it's 2026, and I'm on social media a lot. Can we sue people that are overly stupid at this point? No, I'm just kidding.
Not yet.
It's still time. So, Farid, you have an interesting story. You're a first-generation immigrant from Iran. And tell us how you grew up in Iran and then ended up running a top law firm in Los Angeles.
I'm a first-generation American, but I'm also Iranian. I left Iran when I was a little over 4 years old. My mother, we escaped that country, fled to Italy on a refugee visa platform that they were doing at the time. And then stayed there for 2 years with my brother, my mother, and myself. And he was we were just bouncing back and forth in Italy, figuring out where we were going, and then landed in California after about 2 years of being there. Came to California, lived in my grandmother's house with my mother and my brother. Because, in Iran, when you were leaving the country at that time, they wouldn't let the whole family leave at once. So the only way you can leave
is that way they can store you if you come to problem.
Exactly. You're getting on invasion, and then they figured, well, if the patriarch of the family stays behind, which is my father, then it would be fine. The family would have to come back.
Wow.
So we went there on a vacation, essentially. That's what the regime thought. And never came back.
Sounds like my dad. He went for milk. I'm still wondering where he's at. No, I'm just kidding. No, but that's what year was this that you guys escaped Iran?
I left Iran in 1987.
Wow.
86, 87.
So that was after the thing.
Yeah, so the downfall of the Shah.
Downfall of the Shah. Yeah, it's interesting to see pictures of Iran and how liberal it was prior to the fall of the Shah or the fall whoever it was that was overseeing stuff. I'm not pulling it here this morning at Monday, I guess. So you come here, you grew up as a child negotiating and translating for parents. You're like 4 years old. This is a lot of.
My parents spoke no English.
Uh-huh.
The time was in the rag trade. He was selling men's garments. And they had a closet. He had a store in downtown on the corner of 8th and LA Street.
Mm-hmm.
At the time when he was there was, I mean, you got to understand, he spoke limited English, if any, couldn't read or write at all. And a lot of the things he was doing, he had no way of really translating. He didn't know what to do. So at a very young age, I was translating for my father, trying to figure out. I mean, he was leasing a store. I was trying to figure out what the lease would be like. If he ever wanted to get a loan, I was reviewing the loan documents for him. If he was, whatever he was trying to do, I mean, I think he would bring me the paperwork to read.
You had to grow up fast.
Super fast. Super.
And plus, you're in a country that you didn't grow up in, maybe you have a limited English and stuff like that. But how did you learn the English language? Did you pick it up on TV the way the automatic?
I was in cartoons, really.
Oh, really?
Cartoons were how I learned DuckTales. I think is how I learned. Then,
well, as long as you don't use that Pepe Le Pew way to pick up women, you'll probably be okay. I
don't think I'm doing that. But yeah, I was in America at that time, trying to figure it out. I mean, just like I think that story is so similar to almost virtually every single immigrant kid who comes here. They're trying to figure it out for their parents, for themselves. Their parents leave to try to give the kids a better life. And I think you owe it to them, right? When you're on here and your parents make that type of stuff, where you owe it to them to try to really push yourself and to achieve something for them, to make their sacrifice worth it. So, and I think that was really the motivating factor, at least for me, to make sure that I proved to them that, listen, it was, I guess maybe that journey that they made was worth it.
That's quite an onus to carry as a young man, but you do grow up fast, and you kind of learn through your father's apparel company, handling and working through some of his stuff, the entrepreneurialism bug. Is that how you got the entrepreneurialism addiction, as we call it, the bug?
No other choice. There's no other choice. I think my advanced place was it was a learning ground, right? I mean, it was like the first I ever really had in everything, in sales and talking to people and management and understanding customers and understanding what people really want and understanding goods, products, services, how to really make sure somebody was happy in the experience, the journey of a customer, if they'd ever come back, if they wouldn't, touch points, etc. I mean, the whole thing I learned through trial and error while working there, but at a very small scale. I mean, he was selling a shirt for $6.99. Right? It was like, but you wanted to make sure the customer was happy.
Yeah. Make sure they're happy, customer service, sales, marketing, all that sort of good stuff. That'll grow you up quick. And once you get that addiction, man, once you get that bug, it's hard to lose that entrepreneurial bug because you don't work for other people very well after that.
No, you don't.
I found that out the hard way. I'm just like, this is a hell of a drug, this entrepreneurship thing, but it's a bit of work, but oh man, it's the best kind of work you can do. So at somewhere in there, I assume you decided to go to school for law?
That's right. I went to undergrad at UCLA, and then from there I went to law school.
What drew you to that?
I always felt like that's where I belong. Helping people out, to making sure their voice is heard, to standing up for them in the event that they couldn't stand up for themselves. I thought there was big need for that. Well, it doesn't matter who you were. I mean, it doesn't matter what walk of life you came from. I felt like that there was a need for that. There was somebody had to stick up for you. And I felt, I don't know how it was for us, anytime we had to hire a lawyer, it was impossible. You never got the lawyer on the phone. It was like, it felt like nobody really cared. So we had a chance to start our own firm. I wanted to make sure we did it different as possible to really make sure we had a super customer-centric experience.
Wow. Did seeing some of the things growing up in Iran, and of course you can see Iran from afar now, some of the things they do that are pretty obstructive, did that drive you maybe in the direction of being an attorney and, rights, human rights and human decency?
You had what we saw in Iran and was, I mean, they took away everyone's rights. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to fight back. Nobody really wanted to do anything because the regime was just so oppressive. But you had people there who were, I mean, brilliant authors, poets, business-minded people. I mean, you had such a beautiful community there that regime stifled, and you're seeing it now play out.
In 2027.
So you see now people are fighting back. They want a chance. They want a chance to have freedom.
Mm-hmm.
I think that always stays with you, right? I mean, you would hear stories of people who would have their entire business taken away from that.
Wow.
Come to your show and take your show for you.
Just
take you hear about it. There's no law. There's no judge. There's no court. There's nothing. Fight for that, right? It's coming to take it from you. I always felt that was wrong. I hate something. If I put my heart and soul into it to build it, why does anyone have the right to take it from me if I've done nothing wrong? I think that's that was for sure motivating factor to be able to like really go into this space. But that's what makes America what it is, right? So really a beautiful place.
It's interesting how, I'm sorry. It's interesting. We had somebody on last night or last week, their parents escaped when they were very young, Saigon. And this is after the fall of Saigon, and Pol Pot, and all that stuff had taken over and was starting to get ugly. And they had to make a run for it. And they did. And it's interesting to me, all the immigrants, all the first-generation immigrants that have come to America, naturalized as citizens, or become citizens either way. It's interesting how much they value America and the ideal of America, the true ideal espoused by the Statue of Liberty and everything else. And they value what American rights and democracy has more than, people like me who, a lot of my life, I took it for granted because I was like, it's always here. It'll always be here. I think some people still think that way too.
When you live in another place, another country, all you do is look at America. I mean, America is the shining light. It's the only place you want to be. And you'll take anything just to come here. Anything. You know what I mean? Because you have liberties, you have freedoms, you have a chance to really do something with your life here. And people can't just take it from you. You can't be jailed for no reason the way you could in those countries. And I think every country has its own problems, but I think America is the beacon of light for most of the world. I mean, it is the place everyone wants to be. And you see it when people want to come here. You don't love immigration to other countries like you do in America. There's a reason why.
Yeah. And we have we have probably, to my understanding, we have the best conversion rate for, getting people repatriated to our sort of experience. Maybe it's because we reach out to people and we include them, and I don't know. It's the great American way, the great American dream. So now everyone's fat and drinking Coca-Cola and fries.
Yeah.
We repatriate everybody through McDonald's. What's your culture and feed? No, it's Big Macs now.
Yeah,
don't do that, folks. It's bad. So in 2011, you launched the DTLA Law Group, Downtown Law Group, and with two partners in a small library conference room. I remember those days to start my corporation at 10 by 10 rooms. So tell us about that, and what was your vision?
When we started, I think there was no real understanding of anything. We didn't understand how to get a single case, what to do with it. I mean, how to develop them, none of it. But we did understand one thing, that if a customer called, we were on the phone, we spent as much time as needed to kind of explain the situation, what we could do, what we can't do. And from that level of word of mouth experience really grew our customer base. I mean, we had so many people who at some point would call in from whatever, if we wrote a blog, if we helped one of their friends out, etc. And a lot of times cases we couldn't even take because it just wasn't in our wheelhouse cases that we did. But we would spend, as much time needed to explain things to them, to tell them what to do, what they can and can't do, even if we didn't take the case. And I think that level of customer service really made an impact on the initial first few years that we were in business. And I think customers really gravitated towards that. Some of those very early customers are still people who continue to contact us if they have issues, problems. I mean, it's always been how we've grown.
There
I
you
love
go.
customer service. But we grew from, I mean, we were literally in a library. I mean, I was literally in a library.
Small library
In a
conference.
small library, in a conference room in the library, literally. I mean, it was, and then, you know what I mean? And you can't speak in the library flying mode. I have a whispering voice, and you have to like run outside, talk to that customer, make sure they're okay, answer their questions, and come back in. But I was literally in a library.
Wow.
When it closed, I was there.
Hey, we started our offices in 10 by 10 room, and I remember there was like room for a desk, and it was all chairs. And if we got more than 4 or 5 people in that room, we were like, because we had all these salesmen, we're just like, we need a bigger office.
Yep.
That's how we started out. We actually started in our apartment to start out, but our first office was outside the room. But now, once you get that entrepreneurial bug and you get things going, you're rocking it. Now, you built yourselves into, 2011 to 2026. So in 15 years, you guys have built yourself into one of California's leading firms for personal injury and consumer protection. That's pretty awesome in that given amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, growth has been exponential, but I think that's always a function of service. You can't grow without service. It's impossible. For service people if you're not giving back something of value to the people who retain you, then there's no way you can't stay in business. I don't think people really want to work. But I think if you have that, and I think customers more than anyone that retain you, clients, anyone that retain you can tell whether or not you're authentic. You can't BS that. I don't think that's something that you could really lie about. I think people know whether or not you're authentic, whether or not you really care, whether you really want to make a difference, whether you're trying your best to help them, whether you're willing to really go the extra distance to do what's necessary to make sure that they achieve the highest possible value on their claim. You cannot fake that. That is an authentic thing. And unless you are willing to do that, I don't see growth is much more difficult to achieve.
Yeah. Customer service, man. I grew up in the era of Tom Peters and it was a commitment to excellence. And it was kind of this huge customer service revolution. And it was so great. And companies seem to be customer service oriented. Now it seems like it's a lost art. Like everyone's just like, yeah, we're over the customer's always right sort of thing. And it's so hard to find good customer service nowadays. It really is. It's just nearly impossible. If you want to find out more, call your cable company, see how long you're on hold. I love how they always say, we really care about your business. That's why we don't hire enough people as a multi-billion-dollar industry. And we're going to make you wait an hour because we really care. And then we're going to play the same 5-second loop, the worst music ever.
That's true. I mean, I think I don't know what happens to that size of a company, where it goes, but I can tell you.
Yeah.
Service in general, it's, I've always been a huge Tony Hsieh fan. God bless him, but the guy who started Amazon, I always said he had the best model for customer service. He understood customer service, he understood what they wanted. And it's not always about the customer being right. I think it's more about just explaining what it is, what the limitations are or what the limitations are not, and what can be achieved as a result of working on whatever it is the industry that you're in.
Yeah.
Right.
Would you say the big part of that is trust? Earning the trust of the consumer?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, I think that's a huge part of it. People have to be able to trust you. They have to be able to trust that you're going to do a good job for them. And then you're also going to be honest with that.
Yeah. In fact, the CIA quit doing waterboarding. And now when they want to torture and investigate clients or whatever, you get the data out of them, they just have them call like a big cable company and wait on hold. And usually within an hour, they get everything they want. So
you could see it, and you could see the value of trust. Look, I've been not exactly, I don't think lawyers really have the best rep sometimes. They don't, until you need one. Right.
That's true.
Lawyers have a bad rap, especially what we do. It has a bad rap. There's a million names for it, but I think some of it well-deserved. But reality is, finding a lawyer that you trust, that is actually going to be on your side to take care of you, it's hard to do. It's hard to find that person. And we strike right every single time. I'm sure we have our own things that every business is always looking to improve, always looking to do better. I think if the moment you think that you have nothing more to improve, that you've reached the highest level, that's when I think you start to fail. I always think there's always a refinement somewhere. There's always something you can do better in that cycle. There's always some efficiency you can improve on, something you can improve on daily. And I think that's always been my motto, right? Like, if I can get one thing better a day, doesn't matter if it's not going to be perfect, but I can just get it slightly better than it was when I started that day. In any of the verticals that we're in any area that we're in, if we can just do something a little bit better daily, then I think we've achieved something that day. And it could be anything, but that's the goal.
Yeah, to get close. You're never going to be perfect, but to get as close to it as you possibly can is the journey. So talk to us about how personal injury law helps people really build their lives. You know, we're kind of talking. For a decent human society where, you know, there's a rule of law, or there used to be. Tell us about how personal injury law helps people rebuild their lives.
I think what a lot of people don't realize, especially in California, is without something like this, without a system like this, what would happen to the individual who gets into any type of, you know, horrific accident, or loses their job, or is fired improperly, or is injured at work, or has sold something that's, you know, a defective product? What happens? Those companies are not coming forward and saying, oh, well, you know what, you're injured. Here we go. We're going to write you a check for all your injuries and everything that happened to you so you can move on. No. We exist simply as a function to prevent individuals from those companies who are taking advantage. If insurance companies were fair, if you got into an accident insurance call and you say, you know what, you're hurt, here's your check, here's the policy limit, etc. We accept all your injuries. We're going to pay you, move on. You would never, ever call a lawyer, period. If products were safe, if, you know, employers did what they were supposed to do, there would be no need for a lawyer. It wouldn't exist, right? If the world treated everyone fairly, we wouldn't exist. But we exist as a function of the fact that there is a large part of these companies that they pursue the profits, and by achieving higher profits, they have to, in many ways, not be able to pay out claims, or not being able to pay out claims for what they're worth. I mean, look at one example. Look at what Uber is doing. Uber is trying to pass legislation that essentially reduces the fees attorneys can charge, right? And I think when you look at it on its face, you look at this ballot measure on its face, that, well, attorneys can only charge 25% along with costs and medical bills, and the client has to net 75%. The average person looks at that and says, wow, that's a phenomenal deal. I don't want to pay my attorney a third or 40%. I want to walk away with 75%. I would think that too. But what a lot of them are not realizing is, well, no one is going to touch that case. You're not going to get a single quality lawyer that's going to ever want to take a case like that, number one. And two, that's going to leave these corporations and these insurance companies to be able to essentially bully you and do what they want to do. And there's nothing you'll be able to do about it the moment that law passes.
Yeah. It's interesting to me how we handle things in government. But yeah, I guess there's one party that's always trying to shut down attorneys, and then, you know, it's all about rights, you know, and you have to defend those rights. I mean, that's the thing about rights. You have to actively defend them, or they get taken away from you if you let them slide.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think of something from my memory, but the exercise of those rights is the maintenance of those rights. And, you know, that's why we have in law, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not an attorney, but that's why we have, you know, precedent that's set by law, so that we can reference it and we can have a consistent rule of law of going, well, this is what we do, and this is the consistency of it, or maybe we need to look at it and change it. But those rights are imperative to maintain and to function and to be tested. You know, it's kind of a testing ground when it really comes down to it too, where we constantly, you know, hit it over the head and go, hey, is this a law we should have for rights and stuff like that? But yeah, there's always, I remember she's been on the show, Carol Lenig. She's a journalist from the Washington Post. And I remember one time I was talking to her, and she goes, you know, Chris, there's people in power that always want more power. Power tends to corrupt, and they'll keep trying to do things. And then when they do make mistakes, they don't want anyone to see those mistakes because it attacks their power and their standing, or they might lose money. And he goes, she said, the world is always filled with those people. And that's what journalists do, where they go out there and they hold people accountable. And that's, I think, what attorneys do, is they hold some people accountable.
The tip of the spear for accountability is what we do. And we do it on a contingency, meaning, look, you don't pay me a dime unless I'm successful. So it's not like you're paying anything. I'm covering the entire freight on all of that. I risk my own money. I risk my own time, my own resources, all of it in the event that we recover. And if we don't, I eat all of that. I never come back to the client and tell them, look, I put all this time into, can you give me something? No, I eat all of that in the event that the case goes left, right? But I'm in the winning business. I want to win. And if I take something, I want to make sure I win at it. I'm incentivized to do that. But the tip of the spear for accountability is going to be lawyers. It always is. You eliminate that, you take that away from people, then corporations will do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Corporations will always be able to do. And look, they're driven by profits. There's nothing wrong with that. That is the business model.
Sure.
If I'm any business, if I'm a corporation, I am driven by profits. I need to increase my bottom line, my earnings, whatever it is. If I'm a publicly traded company, if I'm not, it doesn't matter what you are. You're trying to increase margins. And if you can afford to pay out, and if you can set it up where you're paying less on claims, far below what they're worth, you increase margins exponentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always people what's right. And if you did what's right, then we would never exist.
Yeah. I think the thing that I find disturbing, and tell me if I'm accurate on this, is that they still, try to interfere with people's rights where you have to hire attorneys. And they still find that it's financially viable to go that way and behave that way. I guess there's enough of it they get away with that they feel that it's worth the attorneys that do sue them and hold them accountable. They feel that it's still worth the hassle they put them through and probably the money they spend doing it. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, look, the reality is you have to be well funded as a firm to be able to take on a larger corporation. It's very expensive to litigate it. And the client didn't put any of that money. You're covering all those expenses. You're covering all of that in order to move it forward. And I think many firms may not be as well capitalized, may not be as well resourced to be able to do something like that, or skilled. And if that person who's representing you, the insurance company can walk all over you. And they know that. They have all that information. They have insurance companies in general, and corporations are some of the most well-trained on data. I mean, they have so many data points on everything. They know who's who, who's going to litigate, who's not going to litigate, who's going to put up a fight, who's not, how many trials you've done a year, how many people work there, what kind of resources you have, and then they can test you. They can test you and see, and if that person is not well equipped to be able to fight you, it's just what challenge can you put up? They can bury you, or they can bury you in cost. And again, if you don't have that ability to be able to put up a fight, then I don't know what the odds of your case being successful, despite you having a viable case, is probably low. Which is why companies will do what they'll do. They'll keep pushing that envelope. Whichever company, they'll keep pushing, even though you have a viable claim, they know that the person representing you on the other end is not necessarily going to be able to do much on it.
Yeah. We've had doctors on the show, and they've all told me that the language they build into these medical contracts and stuff, and medical operations, and when you sign for your insurance and stuff and all that, and you pay it, they basically have out clauses that are just filled in these contracts now, where they have every reason to deny you coverage that you've paid for.
Yeah. And
they have all these loopholes and different sneaky link sort of things. And we've seen stuff like, I remember there's the infamous State Farm thing where they just delayed for 10 and 20 years until the couple passed.
Yeah.
Sometimes cancer patients die off and they just delay.
Yeah. And their claim goes with it. Tort reform, one of the biggest threats to society in America, for sure.
Yeah.
I think people don't realize it. Because again, you can people get a bad rap, right? Like, I mean, you get in a car accident, all of a sudden you get sued. You now are like, well, that was a BS case. Why am I getting sued? You don't know that did to somebody. You have no idea how it might have derailed that individual's life. You don't know what that person's pre-existing injuries were. And I think until you actually need one, you don't realize the value that attorneys that work on a contingency provide. It's difficult to understand that. And I don't think many people understand what that is.
So my friend one time got T-boned by a driver. I don't know if she was drunk or something, but he was in a horrific crash that I think broke one of his vertebrae and damaged him for life. And I remember he'd been in the military, so he had the VA as backup, kind of. But the extent of his injuries were pretty heavy. And I remember he was kind of fighting them a little while. I don't know if it was a money thing for him or he didn't have the right attorney. And finally, he was just like, Chris, I really need the money. You know, I'm going to accept $10,000. And I'm like, $10,000? Dude, your back's blown out. They're talking about having to fuse your spine. You know, I'm like, you don't know where this goes. I think he was like 39 at the time. And I'm like, you know, you're fight through life. And I was like, $10,000? I don't know. And he's like, well, you know, I got the VA. And I'm like, but still, someone owes this to you. You know, you did the VA and were in the military. Yeah, I mean, that's owed to you. That's one thing. But someone damaged you and they owe you for that damage. And that's not really the VA's responsibility. But I mean, it's great they're there. And I said, man, are you sure you want to do this? This seems like just a bad idea. I think you need to play this out. And I think it'd been a year or so, 2 maybe. And he didn't do it. He accepted the 10 grand. Well, later down the line, they had to do the fuse.
Wow.
And then it was getting to the point where he was having to walk with a cane.
Wow.
And, you know, I remember I was best man at his wedding. And I saw him just hobbling around this cane. And I was like, dude, why don't we just put you in a wheelchair so you can get at least a break? And he goes, Chris, once I go to the wheelchair, I don't get out again. Wow. And it's all about quality of life and preserving that quality of life, which is a really big deal when you're injured and or damaged in some way because you tend to degrade faster. And he goes, and just watching him, and last I talked to him, they're about ready to fuse his backing. And once they start fusing, they end up doing everything. And really, someone should have paid for that for the damage, and they got away with it for 10 grand.
Yeah,
so I think the girl might have been drunk.
Yeah, and his life will forever be ruined. Look, the problem is you have a huge effort from large corporations to lobby against attorneys and what they do, right? And they try to reform. I mean, if you remember, there was like an infamous case where a lady had coffee spilled on her lap, and then McDonald's ended up paying a whole bunch of money for that coffee spill. And in the way it was like, oh well, you know, look how greedy these lawyers are. Look how ineffective our system is. Where we're paying millions of dollars for a coffee spill case. You know what I mean? And people look at them like, well, they're right. Why did so much money get paid on a coffee spill case? But the reality is, look, jurors never pay that kind of money unless it's real. And if you look into the facts, that lady had multiple terrible burns in some of the most sensitive areas of her body. They were warned multiple times that the coffee is running too hot. They did nothing about it. The lids had issues. I mean, there was a bunch of problems with that case, which is why the verdict was what it was, or the settlement was what it was. But they never revealed that part. That stuff was never told to the consumer, right? So I mean, it's like essentially the propaganda they put out there with respect to what really happens in these cases, and as a result, pushing for tort reform, constantly pushing for tort reform. And clients buy it sometimes, right? Because they make you believe that, well, if we stop pursuing these cases, your insurance premiums are going to go down. But it's never happened. That never happened.
Insurance companies lowering premiums.
Yet premiums don't go down. Premiums do not go down. You know, they passed laws in I think in the 70s or 80s with respect to what you could do with if you're injured by a doctor in California. And the doctors made a big fuss about it. Look, if you don't make these changes, there's going to be a huge exodus of doctors out of California. If this continues, your healthcare costs are going to skyrocket. So they passed this legislation where if you were hurt by a doctor, there are caps. They call them micro caps. It's how much that you can sue your doctor for. They've now since removed some of those caps, but healthcare costs didn't go down in Cali at all. Yeah. In fact, it's been the exact opposite. If the insurance companies or any of these corporations can prevent that from themselves from being held accountable, they're not going to just all of a sudden stop increasing margins as a result. Now they can do what they want without any accountability. You essentially remove the guardrails from them. And what do you think?
It's insane. I mean, I don't know how to fix the process. Has anyone ever done the math that if insurance companies would just comply and just pay out shit and not have to run up attorney's fees, maybe things would be cheaper for them? I don't know. But I mean, I equate it to that old, it's that line from the movie Fight Club where the guy explains the math that they use, where if only it has to be a certain amount of people that die from the malpractice of whatever they put in the car or how they designed the car that got them killed. That if X equals Y and Y equals Z, we settle.
The math, absolutely.
But enough people have to die to make that happen.
Yeah, they do the math. They figure, well, listen, if we paid out X amount in claims, it's so cheap. We made the change with respect to fixing the faulty problem because they understand. Personally, like your friend who's going to take $10K on a case, that's for significantly more.
Wow.
But he's going to take that. He's going to take that money because he either needs the money, doesn't want to deal with the process, doesn't have an effective lawyer. Is just, himself may not doesn't have the bandwidth mentally to continue to push forward. You know what I mean? They understand all this stuff. There's a make they put it in, and they can figure out this number.
The machinery is the process. The process is the savings, basically, by creating the process. I know I it's been interesting to see how many companies have been trying to fight, having to defend some of the ilk that they do, by forcing mediation. I know that was a big deal, especially for a lot of things. I got really angry with the Biden administration when they allowed the lawyers to avoid mediation for sexual lawsuits, sexual discrimination lawsuits, sexual assault or sexual harassment lawsuits. And I was like, this is bullshit. Like, how are you cutting out a segment of law for one thing and not for everything? If you're gonna get rid of mediation, get rid of it across the board for everything. And that seems fair, but what do I know?
There are inefficiencies in this system as well. I mean, I can't sit there and tell you there isn't. There is always going to exist, but I think the overall good achieved as a result of being able to help people outweighs the one-off instances where it's not achieving that purpose. But the overall benefit that it provides to society, I don't think we as humans understand what would happen in the event that you eliminated your ability to bring forward a case for injuries that you sustained, or holding a company accountable for any wrong that they did, whether they sold you a bad product or you got injured. Mm-hmm. If you remove that, then and you have no accountability,
yeah. I mean, they'll just run shot on whatever they want. We're kind of seeing a lot of that now in 2026.
Yes,
where corporations are just like, fuck it, we'll do whatever, and we don't want to be accountable, and kind of a rise of oligarchy a little bit. So as we go out, give people a final pitch out on the services that you guys offer. How can they onboard with you? How they can get to know you, consultations, et cetera, find out more?
You can reach out to us online on Instagram. We're 24/7 available, making sure that we provide any service that the clients need. My firm does auto accident cases, premises liability cases, employment discrimination cases, workers' comp. If your vehicle is considered a lemon, we handle that. And we are a full service litigation firm. Everything related to consumer injuries and everything we do is contingency based.
Now, what if my wife is angry with me and she won't tell me what's wrong?
Then I can't help you. That's on you.
Damn it. I'm trying to find somebody who will help me with this, but I don't know. Anyway, well, very good then. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Farid. We really appreciate it. Thank you, and wonderful discussion on the law and why it's important, folks, to maintain your rights and to have rights in the first place. We want to maintain those rights in 2026 and ongoing. Why you still have them? There's lots of stuff going on, but I remember I was in. I had some pretty evil attorney friends. They taught me how to really bury people in discovery and also how to appeal to hell freezes over. Did they know Roy Cohn? Probably. Anyway, I remember one time I was appealing this.
You knew?
Huh? No. I was doing a joke about Roy Cohn, really. Yeah. But I had some evil attorneys, and I'm like, they probably learned from Roy Cohn. I don't think they did, but yeah, I guess I did imply that when I was saying I knew evil attorneys, and then there were Roy Cohn. I jumped the segue, I guess, there. So yeah, I just knew evil attorneys in Utah, and I don't know if they were evil. I call them evil because we were just funning because they were my friends. But they knew how to bury people in discovery, all sorts of stuff. It was funny. Like they would, you get a speeding ticket. You ask. I had a BMW 540i, so I was getting every speeding ticket in the world. And back then, Utah was kind of like a criminal, revenue state for crimes. And they'd have speed traps like every 5 miles. And so I went and the thing the guy had done is he'd been in an undercover car, and he worked for the DMV, and he decided to pull me over one day, and he lied, and he said that he had paced me when he flipped his lights on immediately when I passed him. So he didn't have a radar, and he said he paced me for like several miles. Right. He lied. And his wife had been in the car. They were going out to dinner or something. So I defended my rights and appealed the shit out of the case. And of course, that's what my attorneys taught me, is just to keep appealing forever. And I remember I asked for his wife to come in as a witness because I knew that she might tell the truth, that he hadn't paced me. And I remember this lady looked at me from the bench, this judge. And she looked at me. She says, "Mr. Voss, let me have your attention." She goes, I value what you're doing here because," and she announces the courtroom. She goes, "I love what Chris is doing here. He is using the Constitution and the law to defend himself. And I think more people need to do that. And he's utilizing it." He goes, "But look, young man, there might have been a time where you had a face that could get away with a lie that you weren't speeding, but that time is far gone." But she did grant me the motion to.
That's a great story, man.
Yeah, but she told the room. She goes, "This is what more Americans need to do. They need to value the law. They need to care about their rights, et cetera, et cetera." So thank you very much, Farid, for coming on the show and highlighting that.
Amen.
Thank you. Thanks, John, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss one, the TikTokity, and all those crazy places in it. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
You'll be listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast to improve your brain and your life. Or, too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, irresistible than human regularly moderated amounts. He's the resulting brain lead.